So I was at a gathering the other day where there was a bunch of people I'd never met before. And so, we were doing the whole like, where do you live? What do you do? And I was talking to this one gentleman and I was like, oh, what do you do? And he said, oh, I'm an industrial designer. And I sort of nodded, pretending to know I kind of know what that is, but oh, okay. And then maybe 20 minutes later, his wife came up and we started chatting. And somehow in conversation, she started to talk about how one of the things he has designed is currently on a space station being used for like these amazing experiments. And I had this moment, I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. And he was standing right there. And I kind of looked at him and I said, why didn't you say that? And he was like, oh, I don't know. And so it just got me thinking about like, why are we so bad often at talking
Yeah.
about what we do, even when we're really excited about it, right? Like, I understand if you're really not into what you do, sure. But obviously he was. And yet when I asked him what he did, it was, oh, I'm an industrial designer. Boom. And then he actually does something so cool. And so I've been thinking about how a giant part of reinvention, right, of aligning more closely to your authentic self is learning how to express that and to learn how you actually talk about what you do with excitement and feeling and color in a way that creates a conversation versus I'm an industrial designer. The
Yeah.
end. And so this is why I'm so excited about my guest today, because this is her like magic gift of helping people. And she's already helped me with this, talk about what they do with excitement and feeling. Talia, just to introduce her a little bit, for the past 10 years, Talia has been teaching executives and entrepreneurs like me and employees how to talk about what they do with feeling so they can grow their businesses and have more opportunities for their work or whatever it is they do. Some have closed deals on Shark Tank. I love that. Others have had their revenue grow for the first time in months. And I can just share personally, and we'll talk about this, like just a short conversation with Talia got me to think about talking about what I do in a different way. And I think I'm pretty good at that already. When she's not working, you can find Talia somewhere on the green belts, walking around and talking with friends in Austin. And with that, Talia, welcome to Reinventability. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy I'm here. Thank you for all of those really, really kind words. And also, that is such an amazing story. If there were any story that captured what gets me most excited, it's what you just shared on just the difference between how less willing we are sometimes to go fully into the thing that we're so excited about and passionate about and what we're pouring our hearts into every day. But then when you're standing in a group and somebody who knows you kind of vouches for you or speaks for you, it's such a different conversation. So I love that story. That's so amazing that you also had the experience of, why didn't you say that? Like, this would have
Yes.
been such a different conversation. We may not have connected at all had that not slipped into the discussion. So I love that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no, I was thinking about our conversation. I was like, oh, I can't wait to share this. So, okay. So I want to ask you, let's just like go right into it.
Let's
Why?
do it.
Why is it so hard? Why are many people, why are so bad at this? Like, what is it about that is so hard for us?
There are so many answers to that, but I'm going to share the ones that just come up immediately for me right now that I've been really observing a lot more lately. So, first of all, it's so societally ingrained in us to have that type of exchange of, what do you do? I'm a this. What do you do? Cool. And that's the end. Just like it is when we say, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Okay, good. The end. So I feel that it's a really deep societal pattern that we take on in the way that we interact with each other.
Hmm.
That's number one. And if you don't have the self-awareness to recognize that it's just a language pattern or it's a conversational pattern that doesn't actually allow for you to connect deeply, then without that self-awareness, you can't actually apply a different framework or a different way. So I think the self-awareness piece is really missing because it's something that's so normalized and it's something that
Hmm.
we practice all the time when we're networking or when we're at a friend's house or when we're with family. We just hesitate to interrupt that pattern. So
Hmm.
that's number one. But I think if we're going to peel the onion even deeper and look at the deepest core issue, And I like doing that because I believe that it's the psychology of everything that makes everything work or not work. I actually really believe, Natalie, that it's the hesitation or the discomfort with taking up space. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot because of how I'm personally challenging myself to do that online in the past year and even more lately with video. And it's the energy and the feeling of, I have the right to take up space. I have the right to be here. I have the right to share what I really feel. And I think that when you think of any situation that you were recently in, when you were either networking or talking to someone and you get asked that question, it's like we're uncomfortable answering it fully. It's like we want to diminish to a degree what it is that we're doing because we don't want to take up too much space in the conversation, or we don't want to feel like we're talking at people. But in doing that, you're not actually honoring what you really feel about what you do. And therefore, what you think is you not taking up space is you actually just not appreciating the opportunity for what it is to connect deeply with somebody, and for you to be the person who has the courage to drive that versus be in the same familiarity of the pattern of just high level interaction.
I think, Talia, that is such a really important and deep insight. And I think it's, as you're talking, I'm thinking naturally of myself because that's what we do.
Yeah, of course.
And how often I feel like I would describe it as a sense of feeling I'm rushing myself, right? So I truncate, I summarize, right? Or like this gentleman that I met, he just like gave me the label, not the inside.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, the other thing this is making me think about is, yes, we're afraid to take up space, but not only is that like cheating ourselves of really appreciating and honoring what we feel, but also it's cheating the other person we're talking to of a moment that is interesting, a moment of connection, right? Because if his wife wasn't there and all I got was, I'm an industrial designer, that probably was the end of our conversation. Because I don't know what to do with that, because I actually not even sure what that is, but I actually don't know what to do with that. But because his wife, and again, it always helps when it's someone who loves us, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't her taking up space. She was actually sharing something about someone she loved. We got into this whole conversation that went on for a really long time because my father is a physicist, and like that came in, and actually somebody else standing around started to listen and came over. And then we got into it was like this completely interesting conversation that ended up being about things I don't even know, unrelated. But so it's not just that we're cheating ourselves out of something, we're cheating the other people out of that moment of depth, which is what the whole thing's about.
Absolutely. I love the way that you just said that, because that's so true. We are cheating the other person. And so with that in mind, I actually want to share something that I was just sharing with a family member. I was in London visiting some family, and I love my family because they're so deeply curious about what I do for real, and they just want to learn and apply it. And so we were talking, and it was in prep for this big networking event that they're all going to in London. And I want to share something that I shared with them that has genuinely been my personal belief whenever I'm interacting with somebody. Because to tag on to what you said about what you realize, where you feel rushed or you rush yourself, let's contextualize that for a moment. Let's say you're in a networking group, a networking event where there's like 50 people in a room. And you find that when you're talking to somebody, your eyes are darting around because you're not sure who you should be talking to. And you're not sure if you should be investing into the conversation with the person that's right in front of you. And there's this feeling of being rushed because you have to talk to everyone, or you have to maximize the opportunities. And therefore, in the feeling of rushed, you go more surface level because you're rushing through the moment versus being really present to it. And so that's the context of why and when I think that we're rushed in a business environment. But here's my personal belief. And I think that if you practice and apply this and adopt this to be true, it changes all of your interactions with whoever you're talking to. I deeply believe that in a room of 50 people, if I just so happen to be standing in front of the person that comes up to me, there is a reason for that. And I am going to be innately and deeply curious and almost like an investigator to investigate, why the heck is this person standing in front of me? And if that is my mentality and if that is my belief, I am going to blur everyone else in the room and I am going to zero in on the person in front of me and ask myself, in order for me to understand and get to know by the end of this 15-minute discussion why the heck I'm talking to this person, why they have shown up in my life, and maybe why I've shown up in theirs, I'm going to be as present as I possibly can, and I'm going to go as deep as I possibly can if they're willing to meet me there. And that has to be the mindset that you go into it with, because if you don't, then you can easily rush yourself and shortcut yourself because there is the illusion of an opportunity greater than the one that is standing right in front of you.
Yes. Yes. I think that's such a great example, Talia. And just as you were talking, I'm sure everyone listening had this too. I remembered those times where I was in that situation as either the person whose eyes were darting around or the person who was talking and the other person's eyes are darting around. I think that's a beautiful perspective. You know, the other thing that's coming up for me is, and this is such a big part of like why I started this podcast around reinventability, is each of us has many gifts, right? I believe like that's the whole gig, as my daughter has heard me say, like the whole purpose in life is to figure out what your gifts are, to get really good at, you know, expressing them so that they can be in service of others. Like that to me is like the purpose of life. That's why we're here. And so the other thing that's just come up for me that I'd love your perspective on is connected to the taking up space and being present, is recognizing like that you have this gift and you need to share it. Because if you buy someone a gift and you don't share it, well, that's not really a gift, right? Like if I bought a gift and it's wrapped and for my friend, right? It's not a gift. And so I think it again connects to me back into, I'd love for you to talk about this other aspect of why I think this is difficult to do, is we really undervalue ourselves. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times where I do, whether it's a mentorship one-on-one or I work with a group and I say, okay, you know, I give out a piece of paper, jot down your unique gifts and abilities. How many people look up at me and say, I don't have any unique gifts and abilities? Wow. So I wonder if you would talk about, I think that's probably another reason why it's difficult for us to talk about what we do with feeling, because it's almost like, oh, I'm not that special. It's not that special. Who wants to hear about it?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that, to your point on acknowledging your gift and really owning the gift that you have, I feel like in the way that you just described, and where people struggle to even list what they are, they're so disconnected from it emotionally. It's so neck up and just like in the head and intellectualized. And in order to communicate whatever the gift is with feeling, you have to feel it. And so for me, this actually ties perfectly well into the framework that I encourage people to use when they're networking. It's called the 3 Ps. And the first P is what pains you. What pains you about your industry, about what you see happening for your clients, what pains you in your space. You could even talk globally, but I think that you'll find it's very connected to what you're doing more locally or with your own business. So the reason that that's the first prompt is because it forces you to feel what the truth of that answer is. And so let's just say you ask me, Talia, what is it that pains you? It deeply pains me when I meet people who have so much value, who have spent their whole life accumulating that value and have been through so much in their personal life that has even made them capable of giving it. And they care, and they're heart-led people, and they're humble enough to always learn so that they could be even more heart-led. And then when somebody asks them what they're building or what they're doing, they're mute, or they speak with jargon and they sound like everyone else. And it's like, hold on, that is not your book cover. All this content is inside, and you're walking around with a book cover that's everyone else's book cover. And that makes no sense. And so it pains me because it actually creates this barrier between who you really are and the other person that's in front of you. So I could talk about that forever, Natalie, because it's true. It's a deep truth. It's inarguable for me. And I know that because when I talk about it, I can feel it. And so that's something that I think's missing for a lot of people around their gift, is it's not just intellectually knowing what it is. It's sitting with what pains you in the world, what pisses you off, what makes you angry. And if you can answer that, it always tracks. It always takes you back to what it is that you're building and what problem you're solving and why. And so I think it's just A, the awareness of that, and B, the courage to share it, because that's what it is about.
And I think a big part of that is, and that's probably the awareness piece, is like telling yourself the truth about that too, right?
That's
And
right.
taking some time to do it, because it's not just, even again, the first time we talked and you shared this framework, it's been this ongoing, and I'm in a big reinvention, obviously, but it's something I keep thinking about, like, what is it, right? And just to share, because, you know,
Please.
as we're talking, as you're saying this, I'm like, okay, what is it really for me? And I think ultimately, you know, it's interesting. And I was about to edit my answer just now, because I'm like, oh, is this like, how will this answer play? But my answer, like, the thing that really pains me is inactivity. What really pains me is people who don't take action to do the thing they want to do. It really pains me. It actually drives me nuts. I mean,
Wow.
and I'm envisioning my husband and my daughter right here, because they would be like, oh my God, she's completely cray with this. Because if I hear, like, the example I'll share, because I think you'll really appreciate it, is, so my husband Avi is a giant movie fanatic. He loves movies. He's a walking encyclopedia. It's our favorite thing to do, is to watch movies together. For my 47th birthday, he made a list of all the movies we've seen, 767, and we think we're missing like 100. So movies, loves them. For years, Talia, I've been like, Avi, you should do something about this. You should write a book. You should write a blog. You should nothing. No. And I call this loving agitation. It's very loving. I think to him, it's mostly agitation. But this is my gift, connecting my pain to my gift. My gift is, not only am I really good at taking action if I want to do something, but I activate people around me to do the thing. So finally last year, I elevated my loving agitation to like 100 out of 10. And it was on a particular weekend where I was like, Avi, write a blog, start a blog, set it up. You just got to do it. I was unbearable, I'm sure. And finally it spilled over. He was like, okay, I'm doing it. And he spent like the whole weekend, and he set up his movie blog, his Movies with Avi, everyone. And it's become this giant, wonderful part of his life. And he writes these reviews, and he's had so many, speaking to so many amazing conversations with people. Like, he just took on a new big role. And a lot of his team were like, oh, Avi, I like this movie too. Or, oh, I don't agree. So it's by finally taking this action on his gift. But the point is, like, you're so right. I was like just a case study for you, right? Like, my gift is to activate people to do the thing, to envision like what's, and to do the thing. And it's also what drives me crazy when people don't take action. So
that's beautiful.
That's why this framework is so powerful. Okay, give us the other P's now that we're talking about it. So the first is summarize. Give us the other. The other two.
The first is what pains you. And for everyone listening and watching, I want you to notice how alive, Natalie, you just were. You could talk about that forever. And if you were at a networking event and somebody said, hey, Natalie, what do you do? And you said, well, you know, it pains me when I meet people who are so passionate about things, but they're just completely stuck and they can't take action. And so I help activate the action that they've always wanted to take. And I have a process called reinventability for doing that. That's just the first P.
Yeah.
That's actually the first and the third. But what I want to just point out before I share the other two is it's the energy of aliveness. Like, you just brought life into this conversation, and they may not have the context of who you do that with and how and what exactly that means, but it 100% sparks a conversation of interest because that energy is interesting. And so that's the first P. It's how do you bring life to the conversation by sharing something that is true, something that you deeply feel, what pains you or what pisses you off. Now, the second is, as a result of that, as a result of you, Natalie, you feeling like just pained by that, there's a problem that you're naturally solving to do something about it. And so the second P is, as a result of that first one, what problem do you have to solve? What problem are you solving to change that? And the third P is, why are you passionate? It's not really why, it's what drives you to solve it. P is passion for the third. And so if you bring all of that together, it sounds like, well, here's what pains me, and this is the problem that I'm solving, and here's why I'm so passionate about solving it. That's a perfect introduction that allows for somebody to connect with you on an emotional level. And I think too often we get into the superficial conversations because no one's willing to dip their toe into the emotional pool of conversation. So those are the three P's, and you just demonstrated half of it perfectly.
I know. And it's, well, it's fantastic. I get to workshop this with you, but the thread I want to pull out of like the very core of what you're saying, because you also use my favorite word, aliveness. It's like my favorite word.
I love that.
Because I think that's the whole thing we seek. I actually don't think we seek meaning or purpose or happiness. I think we seek the feeling of aliveness, and all of those things are, of course, are part of it. But just something that is so beautiful in all the different ways you've been saying, like the purpose is not to present yourself in a certain way. The purpose is not to, I don't know, get to some goal. The purpose, the whole thing is, how can you make this interaction more full of aliveness and interest? Right. And I just think shifting that goal already removes a lot of the barriers, don't you think?
That's right. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And if the question is, how do I bring more aliveness to this discussion? And you think about what you have to contribute and give to make it that way, you're giving the truest, realest, most honest answer, even if it sounds like different than everyone else and you sound a little more passionate and more alive. You're giving the most honest and truthful answer that you are aware of. And so if you use the three P's, pain, problem, and passion, it helps you go layers deeper on even your own awareness as to why you're so passionate about what you're doing. And then when you understand it and you can workshop it and you can share it to your exact point, and I love that word too, the conversation just becomes alive. And it doesn't matter if you're an executive or you're on a sales team or you're an employee or you're an entrepreneur. I don't care what your position is. If you are building anything, even a team or a practice, and you're focusing on business development and growth, this is how you grow faster, because you connect deeper by being the person who starts the honest and truthful conversation. And that usually boomerangs back to you because people get so jazzed up about that when then you ask them, they're more willing to be as vulnerable.
Yes, I think that's such, Talia, I just want to tell you, for me, and I think for a lot of people, but that's been a big gift that you've given just through our conversations, but also just through what you share, in that courage, because I do think courage is part of it, to be honest and authentic and really talk about the core, like the meaning part, because I feel almost like like I want to be that person. I want to be that person that makes this conversation interesting and alive. Yeah. Like I want to be that person. You know, it's interesting. I'm just thinking about, so I don't do a lot of, I haven't been in a lot of networking event opportunities. It's just not a part of my life that I spend a lot of time in, but I just came back. I spoke at the CEO conference in Napa, and it was one of those very like it was like 50 top CEOs, Napa Resort. I mean, it was beautiful, beautiful. And I was very grateful they invited me. It was fantastic people, but it was very like, I was the only woman speaker. Wow. I think there were probably only 5 or 6 women. It was very, it was an industrial sector conference. So very interesting. And I'm just thinking back, you know, after my talk, and again, I have the benefit, I just gave the keynote and they talked about my bio. So I'm coming in, you know, people know who I am. I don't know who they are. But again, an experience that I want to share with you and everyone where there was a gentleman in my session who was very in, you know, like he was like, there's always that, he was taking all the notes, answering all the questions. He comes up to me afterwards, Avi and I are standing outside. He was like, you know, I just wanted to tell you, your talk really resonated, like wonderful things. We chatted. And then I was like, oh, what do you do? Because his name tag was like in a place I couldn't really read it. I was like, oh, what's your And he's like, oh, I do what you do. I coach now and I teach at Northeastern. Do you know who I was talking to, Talia? He used to run Craft International.
Oh,
Like
wow.
all of Craft International. And not only did he used to do that,
Wow.
but he has done some really incredible things. And he gave a keynote talk next that I went to and I was blown away by. But again, in that interaction, I didn't get that. I just got that he's some big time executive teachers at Northwestern, whatever. And then Avi and I went to his talk and I was blown away. He has this really incredible way he thinks about boldness. And again, like I'm just reflecting back now.
Yeah.
Not blaming him for staying in a very quick response culturally, but what could I have done to make that a more enriching conversation?
Yeah, it's a beautiful reflection. It's a beautiful reflection. And I think that so many times the answer to that in any interaction is how could have you been more curious, or how could you have been more like spotlight is on them? Like, I want to understand, like, what do you teach and what type of consulting and for who? That's so interesting. You know, I think I read this in a book called Reality Transurfing a decade ago. And it was talking about how everyone just wants to feel so important. Everyone is in the game of wanting to feel important and wanting to feel recognized and wanting the spotlight attention on them. And if you play the opposite game where you make them feel important versus, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, I'm just saying that it's such an amazing strategy and a true way of living to just pass it back to them and make the spotlight about them in that type of interaction. What I am saying, though, at the same time, is that if the spotlight is on you and somebody asks you what you're doing, then lead with the deepest answer. Lead with the most, authentically truthful answer for you. And that often actually brings life to the discussion, whereby they start sharing more, or they connect with something that you said, and they spin off of that, and it just becomes a very organic conversation. But I think often when you reflect on something like that, the beautiful thing to take with you and carry forward is, if I were just more curious and really back to that investigator archetype, if I was an investigator and I was curious to know more about that, then it would probably have just opened up a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have favorite questions to ask people when you meet them that are not, what do you do? I'm a collector.
It's funny. I've toyed around with this for so long because at one point, especially when I was preparing for the TEDx talk, I wanted to have a question that I reconditioned society with to a degree. And the honest to God answer is that all of them were just so corny. It's like, it's just so cheesy to be like, what drives you to wake up every day? It's just like, I can't do it. But like, even my whole tagline for the talk was like, answer what you do with what moves you. And I loved that. I still love that. But you can't go up to someone and be like, what moves you?
What moves you? Hi, I'm Natalie. What moves you?
It doesn't work. So ask me in 10 years if I come up with a new question. But currently they're all just too cheesy. So my best strategy is it's fine to ask it. Ask follow-up questions if you are in that pattern, but just for sure do not answer it the way that we've been conditioned to. Yeah. That's the real change, is the answer, not the question. But the question maybe I'll develop one day.
Yeah, well, I'll keep asking you. But the other thing, what you just said, like, answer it deeply. It's your analogy of a book cover and the book. I want to come back to that for a moment, because what we remember about people, if you just think about people you've met, right? I don't necessarily remember their titles, or actually I usually don't remember titles. I'm not great at like that kind of tactical info. But what do we remember? We remember something that was interesting or vulnerable, or like I remember that this guy designed something that's up in a spaceship. I actually still don't know exactly what he does. I couldn't tell you. We've seen them a couple times since, but I don't know what he does. But if I were to introduce him, I would say, he designed something that they're using in space right now to run experiments. How cool is that? And so I think that I'd love for you to talk about, give some suggestions for people who are listening, who are like, oh, these are wonderful ideas. I'm not quite sure like how, and again, I think the framework is really useful, right? Like, what pains me, what problem I solve, what I'm passionate about. But do you have other suggestions for how someone could connect better to what is some of the content from their book that they want to lead with versus, hi, this is my title, this is what I do, I'm a keynote speaker, hi, I'm Natalie?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that if you think about that answer, so much of it is answered in terms of an identity. So when you say, I am an industrial engineer, I am a anything is an identity. You identify with that. And it's such a small part of your identity. And so I think A, being aware of that, and then B, other things that I really, really love encouraging people to use besides for the 3 Ps that is honest is, so imagine if we were at an event right now, or if we just met for the first time on Zoom and I asked you what you were up to. I might not say, what do you do? I might say, what are you up to right now? Like, what are you building? What are you excited about? What are you pioneering? What are you looking forward to bringing into the world as an entrepreneur? And I think that whether you ask those questions in that way or not, if they're too cheesy or not, I do believe that the I am a this is very rooted in an identity that is in the past or in the present. And if you can orient more about the future, because most people are really excited. Most people are excited about the future. There are some that are not, but most people that you probably want to connect with are excited about the future and how they're shaping it and what they're developing and what they're working on and what their vision is and all of that, what's coming up in the next couple of months. So I also really encourage people, and I think that makes for a really exciting conversation if you can orient not only your questions, but your answers in more of a future tense, unless, of course, in this present moment, you are just jazzed about something. So I don't know if that's helpful, but thinking about.
I think it's really helpful. And again, I'm thinking about people I know and conversations I've had recently where, one of my mentorship clients is this really wonderful woman who has had a career. She's been in software and tech companies and has done quite well. And through our mentorship has really discovered or uncovered, reconnected to her passion for helping younger women not have the same limiting beliefs that she grew up with. And it turns out there's a book she's always wanted to write that she's now started writing. It turns out that she's wanted to think about how to share more of her advice with. And I'm just thinking of the conversation that I had with her initially, right? Where she introduced herself as, she took a sabbatical. So she's like, I just took a sabbatical from being an agile coach at XYZ big company. Well, that was actually the past, right? And I think if now I am her coach, I'm her mentor. So I've really helped her reconnect to what is this she's really passionate about creating in the future. But I think that if and just to use that example, if she would say, I just took a sabbatical from being an agile coach at an next software company, and something I'm thinking about is, right? Just even that, because I think, and I'm sharing this with our listeners, just even that, something I'm thinking about doing is, right? Because as we're talking, Talia, I'm a visual person. So I have this visual of when we answer that question of what do you do, we can either narrow or expand.
Exactly. I love that.
Right. So when she says I'm an agile coach, or if someone were to ask me and I'd be like, oh, I'm an author and a mentor to leaders and a keynote speaker.
Narrow.
And well, what do you speak about? Maybe. Right. Versus if I can say, what I'm really obsessed with is getting people to take action, to do the thing that they really want to do. Yeah. And that's that's expansive. Cause
I love that.
That encourages someone to be like, oh, well, can you help me start going to the gym? Cause I hate, fantastic. Let's talk about that. Right. So now we're actually in it. So it's constricting or expansive.
I love that. I love that visual. And it's so true because you're directing that at the end of the day. And I think I think all of us need to remember that we're responsible for the interactions that we have. We're half of them, if not more at times, if you assume full responsibility. And so I love that analogy so much. And I do agree that it's funny you say when you're imagining the agile coach say, I'm thinking about, I love that. It is more expansive. Now imagine if she said, I'm really excited about the idea of. So thinking is a logical, excited, insert any other emotion that is true for you. And that opens up even more. And so I was just meeting up with a client this morning who's a COO of a firm that I work with. She's in town and we had breakfast and she was like, how's Visceral? How's the business? And I was like, I'm so excited about this podcast that we're about to do. And I'm so excited about this joint venture and this collaboration. And the whole conversation was just infused with my genuine excitement about the things that I'm creating and building. And that was enough. And that is often enough. And so, yeah, I think that if you can just insert it with an emotion and a feeling that is true for you, it just transforms that level of expansiveness. So I love that analogy though.
No, I love that. And that may be a question I'm thinking, is it cheesy or not? But asking someone, what are you excited about these days?
Yeah. I like that.
I don't know. I think that's a good one, Talia. I don't think it's very cheesy because I think it's not like, what are you passionate about? Like, what are you excited about these days? Because someone could talk about, like, for example, something I was really excited about before it ended was, the show, The Bear. Have you seen The Bear?
No.
Oh my God. You have to see The Bear. And everyone listening, it is a piece of art. It is really show to me about how we all aspire to greatness. Wow. And to share our greatness, but it's really a show about our failing restaurant or
I'll watch
up and coming restaurant. I think, especially as an entrepreneur, you would love it.
That's cool.
So if you ask me, we finished. There's another season coming, but we binged it, so nothing else to binge on it. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, if you said, Natalie, what are you excited about these days? I'd be like, I wouldn't even talk about my work. I would just be like, oh my God, I'm so excited about the show, The Bear. But then I would tell you why. And the reason I'm excited is it actually, to me, is a show about what happens when we take bold actions to do more of what we're really excited about. So I actually think maybe you and I
like what are you excited about? Maybe we came up with it or you came up with it. I like that a lot. I think that the energy of excitement, especially if there is something you are genuinely excited about, is very life-giving. It infuses, it elevates, it brings more to life, whatever the discussion is. So yeah, I like that a lot. I'll reflect on that. I think it's different than saying like, what lights you up or what are you grateful for right now? Like those are the easier ones.
And I'm someone who teaches gratitude, but I'd ask that in a different
I wouldn't
context.
ask
that's totally cheeseball.
I like that though. Like, what are you excited about these days is a much better prompt. So I'll play with that one.
Well, you it's really, we created it because I think like that, again, your whole, the core kernel is talk about it with feeling. Tap into the feeling. Because we as human beings connect in feelings. We don't connect, with descriptions. We connect when we feel something. And when you feel, my favorite feeling, one of my favorite feelings is enthusiasm.
I love
myself
that. There you go.
I love when I feel enthusiastic about something. And I love when I meet someone that they're enthusiastic. I don't even care what it is. I don't even care if I can relate to it, right? But why? It's because that's like really open. It's really connected. So I really love that.
It's your favorite word, aliveness. It's the same.
Aliveness. That's right. You're right. I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enthusiasm. Okay. I want to ask you the last question.
Please.
And I actually want to ask you what you're excited about. Now, you mentioned a bunch of things, but share, what are you excited about these days, right now?
I'm excited about a lot, honestly, on all fronts of my life. On the personal side, I'm about to get married in 2 months to the love of my life. And I'm just so excited for that chapter, actually. It feels like we're married already. Honestly, we're very non-traditional. So it feels like we've done it all backwards, and we have. But on the business front end with Visceral, I'm really, really excited about this very organic and almost like divine collaboration that has come together with somebody in my close circle who I've known for about 2 years. She's another consultant that is actually like, she's the yin, and we're like the yin and the yang for the businesses that we work with. She is really all about the operational structure and the internal structure and getting people in the right seats and all of the internal side of things. And I'm so obsessed with the external, the growth. How do you position? How do you message? How do you market? Communication wise. And so it's really cool because we're starting this podcast together. And while that is the book cover in a way of what we're doing with businesses on the more strategic side of it, where we really, really, really connect and come together is we have the same mission and philosophy in business, which is to help people heal and to help people heal so that they actually can execute on whatever the tactics and strategies are. And it's acknowledging the heal and then hustle versus hustle and then heal when you burn out. And I just am so excited about this because I've been doing things on my own for a long time, and I'm really ready to do things with other people. It's just more fun. And this podcast that we're starting called Truth in the Trigger, it's like the business locker room for triggers that we're going to be discussing whether you're an executive or you're a team member, whoever you are, and you get triggered by something, whether it's something that happens on a project or in a conversation, and how do you process that? How do you work through that so that you can have the more truthful discussion?
I love that so much.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really excited. So there's just a lot of creative projects, and it feels like a new adventure and a new chapter with some of the things that are going to open up around that. But right now it's just enjoying the process of sharing and doing it with someone that I really respect. So
I love that. And I love your energy around it, and I can feel your excitement, but also I just love that podcast. As someone who spent 20 years in executive roles, I'm like, ooh, boy,
city.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Talia,
Thank you for that
thank
question.
you. Thank you so, so much for you. I always say thank you for being, and thank you for making the time for this. But more than anything, thank you for the absolutely like deeply genuine enthusiasm and love and care that you bring to everything you share, because that's ultimately the gift. I'm really grateful. I'm always learning and being inspired by you every time we connect. And I know our listeners are too. So thank you so much.
That's so
we will put Talia's website, of course, in the show notes. Tell everyone where people can find you.
That's so sweet. Yeah. To connect with me more personally, I'm really active on X right now of all the platforms, and that's how we actually met. So there's some magic to the authentic relationships you can build on that one.
Yes.
So that's the more personal place to find me and interact with me. And other than that, websites. I also just really want to acknowledge you, Natalie, because you have been, this is really the second time that we're talking. And the first time felt like we had talked and had been friends for 10 years. So it's been a really special connection. And in terms of this conversation, I'm really in awe and really grateful for the way you facilitated it, because it felt like a very just natural, it was a natural, just open-hearted, open discussion that felt like we were just kind of sitting down for coffee. So I think that there's a lot of magic to your ability to facilitate that way and just be so real. And I just so appreciate that about you amongst all of the things that you're building. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. The only thing I wish we were sitting, having coffee.
I know. Maybe soon in Austin.
That's the only thing I wish is we could just, do that time.
I know. It's not the same.
Feel through. No, I appreciate that. And I have an inkling this will have many, many conversations and collaborations coming forward. And I can't wait to meet you in person. And for everyone listening and watching, thank you for making time and space for these conversations in your life.
Yeah.
If something you heard resonates with you, if it lands with you, I love to hear about it. Send me an email to natalie@happier.com. Let me know. Rate and review this podcast. It's new. It will help more awesome humans discover it. And if there's something in spirit of relationships and connections, if you heard something that makes you think of someone in your life, share this with them. It might be the gift they don't know they need. And with that, I will see you and be in your ear on our next episode.